the importance of protein and the importance of having high levels of protein throughout, whether a diet phase or a muscle building phase. And I think this will be an interesting topic because we do have a vegan that is here. We can obviously ask a specific question around veganism as well. Protein should remain high throughout the process if you wish to preserve and or build any lean body mass. Now, I guess starting this off, like, why would you want to do that? If we're talking about physique reshaping, this is essentially how it's done. In order to, add more protein to our body, eating protein, whether that be through an animal-based protein source or a plant-based protein source, obviously is going to be very, very important because all we're essentially doing is adding more protein to our body. So if you take a look at like an organism, right, whether it be a human standing there, the human's body is made up of proteins, right? So if we have to essentially add more protein to that body, it's going to require more protein. And I actually have a belief that the more protein the individual has on their body, the more protein the individual requires. You know what I mean? Because we're essentially trying to fuel that living organism per se. So 250-pound bodybuilder, that's 10% body fat, he's probably going to need a lot of protein. 150-pound bodybuilder, 10% body fat, probably need a lot less protein because he's made up of less proteins. Make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, I think why this matters so much is specifically when we're in a caloric deficit. A lot of people will diet a lot of their muscle mass off because of the way that they diet. You guys will hear me say this all the time, but how you diet really, truly does matter. Specifically, I'd say more in a detailed fashion if you're a female. So how you diet matters. And as an example of this, if we were dieting somebody for fat loss and we weren't necessarily focused on preserving lean body mass by having an evidence-based range of protein intake that would supply the amount of recovery that we need to fuel training, to fuel, just making sure that they're staying in an anabolic environment during a caloric deficit, we're really setting them up to lose body mass or lean body mass. Now, if that happens, we have to then think about the organism in and of itself is actually smaller. So if they're shrinking, like their actual protein body is shrinking, does that body necessarily need as much protein or as many calories to function fully? It doesn't. It's a smaller body. It's shrinking. We're losing pounds of lean body mass. So with that being said, that has a direct correlation to how healthy your metabolism can be at the end of a fat loss phase. So we'll see this happen a lot with maybe a small petite gal, maybe 110, 120 pound gal, who could potentially be dieting down. And essentially what happens is that she gets to the end of her competition prep or the end of her fat loss phase, and we're stuck on like 800, 900,000 calories, and she can't lose any more body fat. In a nutshell, that's like the most extreme form of metabolic adaptation because we've lost so much lean body mass that if we would have tried to prioritize lean body mass in this natural female person, then she likely would have been able to achieve stage leanness without having to get so aggressive. Because the amount of lean body mass that she would have preserved would have been much higher. Yeah. So I guess any specific things on protein that either Cass or Gillis would like to add, maybe specifically around like veganism. Obviously, I know that I'll kind of just make an opt-in here is that I know that with veganism, obviously it requires more protein to yield the same anabolic response. But if either one of you would like to maybe shine some light maybe on that and maybe like the ratio, like P-rice ratios and things like that, to where we can actually supplement and get a similar response.
Yeah, I'll go. So I think with, as far as like vegan, I think kind of like what you said, pea and brown rice, usually a 1-to-1 ratio is usually good. I think the main reason that, vegans do need a little bit higher protein is primarily for the amino acid leucine, just because for animal proteins, they tend to carry a little bit higher of that specific amino acid leucine per gram of protein. So versus for a plant-based. So you do need to have a little bit higher to ensure that you're getting that. You're usually wanting to get about at least roughly about 3 grams of leucine, 3 to 5 grams of leucine. 5 is pretty much on the very highest end. Yeah. Because leucines are responsible for what Will talked about, to make sure that you're having you're sustaining the muscle tissue that you're carrying on your frame, or especially if if you're someone that's focusing on building muscle, then you need to make sure that protein is in a good place. So that's usually the primary reason why, for someone that's a vegan needs to make sure that they're ensuring they're getting that higher range of protein for that too. Plus, B12 is another big one, because vitamin B12 is something that comes primarily from animal source. So if you're doing a plant-based, you make sure that you're wanting to supplement for that for metabolic health as well.
100%.
Absolutely. I'd also add to that too, that regarding like protein supplements for veganism, like Ella said, pea rice blends, I believe with the research, they compared equally to like whey protein isolate, right, Gil? So with that being said, from a, I guess, an evidence perspective or a research perspective, if you are a vegan, we highly recommend probably at least 1 to 2 servings of a vegan whey protein per day, specifically coming by way of pea and rice blend. Now, I believe the ratio of that blend should be pea is it 60-40 or is it 40-60?
I think it's 60-40. 60.
Yeah, 60 pea, right?
Pea isolate. Yep.
Yeah, so 60 pea, 40 rice. And I know that Legion Athletics makes a vegan protein called Thrive that aligns with that profile perfectly. So I don't know what kind of protein you are and you're currently using right now, but I would highly recommend that Legion Athletics Thrive protein, specifically just because it's a proven ratio through science that's been clinically shown to be effective.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would say too, with that is important with veganism is getting a good variety of different plant-based proteins too, because like they said, like each different type of plant has like, a different ratio of actual proteins that will add up to your leucine levels that you need. So like some vegans I know, like they've, all they're eating is whatever, beans or something, just one food to get their protein source in. And it's really important to have a variety of different plant-based foods that have higher levels of leucine in them comparatively to, other forms of plant proteins, so you can get that in. So I would say variety would be key, as well as the supplementation, and maybe even taking some EAAs too, just to supplement on top as well. So.
Yep, amazing idea, amazing idea.